Chapter 7 from Gonzo Education, Part 3. When we woke up the next day, Mom was gone. She left her cell phone and car keys, but she didn't leave a note or say goodbye. The noise was too much for her, and she splint like a dog who got spooked after a New Year's Eve fireworks show. Wandering the earth in a psychotic condition, her soul was at the mercy of imaginary dungeons and horrible evils that even Kurt Vonnegut couldn't dream up. We were in a bad motel with no door, no mother. We called Guy, but he hadn't seen her either. We didn't want to wait for management to start asking questions about the door and the bill, so we packed up the little we had, got in Mom's car, and drove to Austin. The only thing we could do to help Mom was to make our own lives better. We needed to put ourselves in a position where we could do something for her. Money solves everything, so we spent the next month driving up and down I-35 working various day labor jobs. We didn't hear from Mom, but we always kept the cell phone ringer on high in case she called. Within a couple weeks, we were filthy and needed showers. I kept in touch with Adam, and he told me that he scored an apartment with a bunch of hoods on a bad street in Austin. There wasn't enough room for Michael and me, but he said we could at least use the shower and charge our phone. We went there the next day, took showers, and Adam suggested we go with him to try to get food stamps. Michael and I never considered getting food stamps before. It always sounded like something for mothers or recent immigrants. We assumed we didn't qualify, but Adam said they'd give us each $200 worth of food money that same day. You're homeless, he said. You qualify. The next day, he took us to the EBT office. We felt guilty and out of place. Waiting for food stamps is like waiting for a jail cell. You're in a chilly room claiming poverty or stupidity, while your facial expressions and body movements have no idea how to react. You don't know whether you should be happy, relieved, embarrassed, or pissed off. In Texas, you have to wait in a crowded lobby with crying babies, screaming fat ladies, and a bunch of other people down on their luck. Half the lobby was born in Mexico, but they had children who were born here, and I noticed they held them close with a little extra affection every time a social worker looked in their direction. We had to wait 2 days, but they gave us each a Lone Star food stamp card that fed us for the rest of the summer. We've become too familiar with our 99-cent hamburger per day diet. You can only eat like that for so long before it takes its toll on you and you die. Our food problem was taken care of, but we still needed money for gas, cigarettes, and weed. When we couldn't get any day labor, we had to resort to panhandling. It was the only time in life we asked strangers for money. There was no way we'd just wave a sign or stand on a corner and ask for change. That's pathetic, and we have dignity. So we pulled the car halfway into a gas pump and asked someone for $1 of gas. If they wanted to know our story, we told them we were coming from a party at UT and trying to get back to San Antonio. We only did it when we absolutely had to. It was either that or run out of gas on the side of the freeway. That's what we wanted to avoid. I was young once too, one man said, handing us a $20 bill. You two boys get home safely and don't break too many girls' hearts. I never help bumps, but you boys are obviously some good kids, another man said. Those bums are always lounging on my sidewalk, asking for this or that. Once I got him with the garden hose. Yeah, we don't like those types either. Those jokers need to get up and work, he said. Yes, we agree, I said. Yeah, we hate 'em. Let's get 'em, Michael added sarcastically. The only reason we panhandled this time was because we needed the gas. We told ourselves that we could easily have money, a family, and people that cared about us, but we just happened to run out of gas. The car didn't have air conditioning, so keeping the thing moving was the only way to stay cool in the 100-degree temperature. The air blowing in through the windows was relief, and during the hottest part of the day, we'd drive really fast up and down I-35 trying not to overheat. A few hours after it got dark and cool enough to sleep, we'd park at a variety of spots near the highway. We slept at rest stops, parking lots, and sometimes down illegal back roads with no trespassing signs. Earlier that year, we were hanging around the same stretch of land, homeless, but at least now we had a vehicle to live in. The first day of school got closer, and I was worried that I wasn't going to be smart enough. I pictured college as a place where articulate intellectuals in cardigan sweaters smoked tobacco out of grandpa pipes, assuming their conversations revolved around Darwin and Descartes. For months, I studied what I deemed college-related. Michael would drop me off at either a public library or a bookstore where I'd memorize Roman numerals read Sigmund Freud, and try to understand what the heck Socrates was talking about with the shadows in the cave. I even wrote imaginary research papers that I'd objectively grade. I did everything I could think of, but I was still afraid of falling on my face. In late July, we got a call from one of our sisters. She said Mom had made her way back to Guy's after spending a month flying around the country. She went through their savings, and the day she got back, there was an altercation between her and Guy, and the cops came. Mom's parents had her involuntarily committed to the Kerrville State Hospital. She hadn't been committed there since we were in third grade. She was living down the street from us at the time, a rare bright spot of our childhood. Then, one day she was gone, locked in a mental hospital. She wasn't allowed to talk to her kids, and no one told her where she was or if she was alive. No one told us where she was or if she was alive. She was gone for almost a year. When she finally got out, she wasn't crazy anymore, but they'd taken a piece of her she would never get back. I refused to go back to San Antonio after hearing she was locked in a hospital. I refused to go back to San Antonio after hearing she was locked in a hospital. If Mom wasn't going to show up, then going back was pointless. I wanted to concentrate on my future in Austin. Michael would still drive there a few nights a week to do day labor, but I spent the rest of the summer preparing for school and refused to leave the UT area. The night before school started, we got a call for a day labor gig to be servers in a fancy banquet at a country club in San Antonio, near Bandera. I told Michael it wasn't worth the risk to leave Austin, but he insisted we needed the money. I wasn't due my financial aid check for 30 days, so $50 would help me during the first week of school. The job started at dusk. When we got to the labor hall, the guy took one look at us and told us we had to get cleaned up. We shaved off our scruff and washed as much dirt off as we could in their tiny sink. The labor hall pimp made me slick my hair back. I hadn't done that in a while, and I couldn't believe how wide my forehead had gotten. We were told we'd get paid as soon as the banquet ended, but the labor pimp never showed up, and we spent the night in the parking lot of the day labor place waiting for them to open the next morning. The plan was to get our checks, cash them at the check cashing place next door, and then jump on I-35 and try to get to Austin before my first class. When the labor hall finally opened in the morning, our checks weren't ready and we had to wait an hour. We didn't get on the freeway until 7:15. My first class started at 8. Michael pushed the little Suzuki as fast as it'd go. I sat with my eyes wide as we weaved in and out of traffic, passing every car on the road. It finally hit me somewhere around New Braunfels. I was on my way to college. I wasn't rushing to get to work at a restaurant or a telemarketing job. We weren't driving to Austin for kicks. I was a college student heading to class. I'd been given an opportunity, and if I failed, I would have no one to blame. Michael pulled into the ACC campus a little after 8. I jumped out and ran across the courtyard to make my way inside. I knew exactly where my first class was, but I still got lost. I was out of breath when I finally burst into a quiet room of 30 students dressed in their first day bests. Everyone's jaw hit the floor. I didn't know if there were assigned seats or where I was supposed to sit, so I just stood in front of the class like a deer in the headlights, having a staring contest with everyone in the room. It seemed like an eternity before the instructor finally asked me to sit down. After my first class, I bought a bottle of liquor and started to relax a little more as the day went on. I was pretty much smashed by the time Michael picked me up that night, and I drunkenly relived every portion of my first day for him. I told him about the classes, how many pretty girls there were, and how my coursework seemed relatively easy. Do you think you can pass? He asked. Yeah, I think I might. Because you only get money if you pass, right? He asked. Yes, they'll give me money if I pass, I reassured him. For the first couple weeks of school, we'd park at the Walmart in East Austin, and Michael would drive me to ACC early in the morning. Once, Jonathan came to visit us at the Walmart parking lot. I showed him my pre-algebra textbook, and he glanced at it for less than a second before throwing it on the ground, like it was beneath him. Most nights, it was me and Michael at the Walmart, but there were a few times where he had to stay in San Antonio to do his day labor. I had to be at school early the next morning, so I'd spend the night walking around Austin without a car to hide in. When it got late enough, I'd sneak into the dog park near Town Lake. There was a busted building there that looked like it had been abandoned for a century. I'd crawl underneath it and sleep in the dirt with the bugs and the rats. When morning came, I'd crawl out, dust myself off, and walk to my first class. I was always filthy, and a few times Michael took the deodorant with him. I'm pretty sure my fellow students noticed. I got more comfortable after a few weeks of class. after a few weeks. I didn't say much and I never asked questions, but every time the instructor asked something no one knew, I'd shout out the right answer from the back of the room. What is sovereign? Who was the first Republican president? What does tabula rasa mean? I was shocked. I finally knew what it felt like to be on Jeopardy. My confidence grew with every answer I shouted. I don't know what I was more surprised by, how much I knew or how little everyone else did. When we got our grades back from the first test, I realized my college professor was my. When we got our grades back from the first test, when we got our grades back from the first round of tests, I realized my college professor father was wrong. I wasn't a good for nothing son of a bitch. I was good at something. I was good at school, motherfucker. I was broke and homeless for the first month of college, but I knew things would get easier when I got my first financial aid check. It finally came on our 24th birthday, and the first thing we did was get a cheap motel where you paid by the week. Michael bought a pint of whiskey, and we celebrated surviving a tough year. After a few drinks, we started talking about Mom. This was the first birthday since third grade where we didn't see or hear from her. They were very strict with outside communication at Kerrville State Hospital, and she wasn't allowed to mail letters or use the phone. The next day, I called an apartment locating service and told them about our situation. I explained that we were both unemployed, didn't have a cosigner, and had horrible credit and rental history. However, the one thing we did have was a little piece of paper that said I was a college student getting financial aid. The locator said that's all we needed, and by the end of the day, we were moving into a new place. I should have been more grateful, but by the time we moved a few things inside, Michael and I got in a huge fight. Punches were thrown, and I told him he had to leave. I told him I didn't want him to live in the apartment. It was in my name. I was bluffing, and I didn't think he'd actually leave. But he packed up his stuff and drove the little Suzuki all the way up I-35 to live in our sister's backyard in Colorado. I wasn't that cold. I'd spent months driving up and down the freeway with Michael while we lived out of the back of Mom's car. Now that we actually found somewhere to live, I wasn't just going to kick him out and tell him he couldn't live with me. But that's exactly what I did, and he never forgave me. The next day, I realized what a jerk I was. Going to college and living in Austin lost a lot of its pizzazz without my brother there. I continued going to school, but I felt really alone for the next month. Then our mother called, and I was elated to hear the sound of her voice. Her mental condition had dramatically improved, and the folks at the hospital concluded that she was well enough to call her kids. Gregory, I'm sorry, I have something wrong with my head, she said. It's okay, I told her. It's not your fault. You kids have always been the most important thing to me, she said. I tried getting off meds, but I wasn't strong enough. I'm taking them again, and they're talking about letting me out very soon. That's great, I told her. Things have been going good for me, too. I'm going to community college full-time and making straight A's. Gregory, I'm so proud of you, she said. I knew you and your brother were always good. You just had a rough start, and it's kind of my fault. Where are you going to live when you get out? I asked her. I don't know, she said. I'm not going to go back to that house with Guy. I want to try something new. Maybe live with you in Austin? Well, this is only a one-bedroom, I told her. Not in the same unit, silly, she said with a laugh. Maybe I could move in the same complex and you could visit me on your way to school in the morning, just like you boys did when you were little. When we got off the phone, I called Michael in Colorado to tell him the good news. He said he'd spoken to Mom too, and he agreed she sounded much better. I told him I was sorry for kicking him out and invited him to come back and live in Austin. He took me up on the offer and said he'd try to get back as soon as he fixed the Suzuki, which broke the second he got to Colorado. God had answered my prayers. Michael and I had gotten over homelessness, and Mom survived schizophrenia. That's why the news came as such a shock on a rainy November afternoon. I just got my grade back from a history test and was thrilled I got every question right. I would finish my homework for the day, so I took my time walking back. It reminded me of when I was in third grade and how I'd stop at Mom's house on my way home from school and tell her how my day went while she poured me Kool-Aid. I couldn't wait to be reunited with her and Michael. For the first time since we were very little, we'd be a family again. The apartment next to mine was vacant, and I figured she could move in there. She'd be so proud to see me waking up early to go to school every morning. I got home and opened my apartment door to a ringing phone. It was one of our sisters, and she was sobbing. She said they'd released Mom the previous morning. Guy had picked her up and took her to his house full of boxes. When they got inside, he went in his room and Mom locked herself in the filthy bathroom. She got in the moldy tub, filled it with water, and took her last breath sometime thereafter. They found her lifeless body the next day. The coroner originally ruled her death inconclusive before finally settling on suicide by drowning. That was chapter 7 of my book, Gonzo Education, fittingly chaptered Mom. It's the saddest part of the book. It ends with my mom dying, and that's all I have to say about that. Um, Go ahead and check out the book on Amazon.com. It's about $5 or $6. You can get it for free on Kindle. And click the thumbs up, the subscribe, and send this to one person if you like.